For 8 years, I built my marketing consultancy from a laptop on my kitchen table to a firm with a seven-figure valuation. My name is Victoria. The success was built on late nights, rejected pitches, and a resilience forged in fire. I was not a naive housewife who stumbled into wealth. I was a strategist. And the man I married, David, was about to learn that the hard way. The first crack in our 8-year facade appeared 3 months ago. David was supposedly at a sales conference in Chicago. Working late, I remembered he'd left his backup laptop charger in his briefcase. It wasn't snooping, it was necessity. But when I unzipped the bag, a sheaf of papers spilled onto the floor like a confession. They were divorce filings. My hands turned to ice as I scanned the language. The petition alleged I was financially abusive, that I controlled every dollar, manipulated him into a prenuptial agreement 6 years prior, and had been hiding marital assets. The narrative was a monstrous inversion of our reality, painted in stark black and white. Then I heard his voice, muffled but clear, from our bedroom. "She thinks she's so smart," he was saying to someone on the phone, his tone chillingly conversational. "My lawyer says we have enough to prove financial abuse. The forensic accountant found discrepancies. She'll be lucky to keep her own apartment." My apartment, the one I'd purchased 2 years before our first date. I leaned against the wall, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. "Trust me," David continued, a smirk audible in his voice. "She'll never see this coming. I'll walk away with half her business, and she won't know what hit her." The cold shock crystallized into a sharp, focused clarity. This wasn't a spontaneous rift. This was a calculated siege, planned for months in the shadows of our shared life. The next morning he returned, the picture of marital normalcy. "How was Chicago?" I asked, my voice steady. "Boring. You know how those things are," he said, dropping his bag with a sigh. I knew exactly what things he'd been doing. His campaign began in earnest. The $12,000 in our joint Italy fund vanished. When I confronted him, his eyes were flat. "That was my contribution to the household. I have a right to it." "David, we saved that together. It was for our trip." "What trip?" he scoffed. "You never want to spend money on anything fun. It's always the business, your investments, your future." The script had been written, and he was performing it perfectly. At a dinner with our friends, he staged his masterpiece. "Victoria," he said, his voice artificially loud, "didn't you just buy another laptop for work?" "Yes, the old one. That's the third computer this year," he interrupted, sighing for our audience. "She has to control every purchase. I asked about a new TV, and she made me write a budget proposal like an employee asking for a raise." The lie was so brazen it stole my breath. We'd discussed the TV briefly. I'd said, "Sure, just order it." Our friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The character of the controlling wife was being sketched before my eyes, and I was helpless to stop it without causing a scene. The illegal assault escalated. He filed for a restraining order, claiming I'd threatened to ruin him financially if he left. The fiction worked. A temporary order was granted, and my business accounts were frozen pending investigation. Overnight, I couldn't pay my team. Clients grew skittish. The empire I'd built began to tremble on its foundations. That's when I understood his method. He'd been recording our conversations for months, twisting discussions about responsible investing into proof of domination. He was weaponizing my success against me. But David underestimated me. In business, you document everything. Emails, contracts, verbal agreements, everything leaves a paper trail. I had applied the same principle to my marriage the moment I noticed his new secretiveness, the defensive posture over his phone, the odd probing questions about my corporate structure. I had copies of everything, every email about finances, every text thread, every bank statement. I had also, driven by a gut-deep suspicion, started making my own recordings. At a backyard barbecue, I'd caught him bragging to his friend Mark. "My lawyer says I can get half her business easily. She's been so focused on work, she's completely blind." He thought I was blind. I was simply waiting for the right moment to reveal my sight. My lawyer, Sarah, a razor-sharp specialist in protecting entrepreneurs, helped me assemble the evidence into a narrative he couldn't twist. We worked late, a war room of two, compiling bank records that showed him funneling money into a secret account, screenshotting text chains where he plotted with friends, and transcribing his own boasts. Meanwhile, David grew emboldened, spending lavishly on a new watch and car upgrades with money he didn't yet have. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, hesitantly told me, "He's been saying in the lobby that he's finally getting what he deserves from you." The day of the hearing arrived. David sat across the courtroom, the image of wronged dignity. His lawyer presented charts and spoke of my controlling behavior. David took the stand, his performance Oscar-worthy. He spoke of feeling emasculated and trapped, of being forced to sign a prenuptial he didn't understand. The judge listened, his expression neutral. David's confidence was palpable. He was almost home. Then it was my turn. "Your Honor," I said, standing, "the petitioner has presented a compelling fiction. I have here evidence that tells the true story." I approached the bench with a simple manila envelope. David's eyes locked onto it, his first flicker of doubt. The judge opened it. As his eyes scanned the first page, a screenshot of a text from David to Mark reading, "Phase 1 complete. She has no idea what's coming. Half that business as good as mine." His judicial neutrality hardened into something colder. I spoke clearly into the heavy silence. "Your Honor, that envelope contains proof of perjury and a premeditated campaign of fraud. Page 2 shows bank statements for an account in his name only where he has been hiding assets while claiming impoverishment. Page 5 is a transcript of a recorded conversation where he admits to fabricating the financial abuse narrative to gain leverage." David's lawyer was on his feet, objecting, but the storm had hit. The judge held up a hand, his eyes never leaving the damning pages. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, his voice low and dangerous, "you have attempted to perpetrate a fraud upon this court. You have perjured yourself, and you have engaged in a malicious effort to strip your wife of assets she built prior to and independent of this marriage." The color drained from David's face, leaving a waxy, shocked mask. The confident facade crumpled into sheer panic. The ruling was swift. His petition was dismissed in its entirety. Not only was he entitled to none of my business or separate assets, but he was ordered to pay all my legal fees and was referred for perjury charges. The prenuptial agreement, which he claimed to have signed under duress, was upheld in full. I walked out of the courthouse into the sunlight, the weight of the last few months lifting. The financial victory was complete. My business, my apartment, my fortune remained intact. But the greater victory was intangible. It was the reclaiming of my reality, the silencing of the gaslit voice in my head that had begun to wonder, am I too controlling? David faced consequences he never anticipated. Criminal charges, a ruined reputation, and the loss of his own job when the scandal went public. The man who wanted half of everything found himself with nothing he hadn't earned himself. In the end, the envelope didn't just contain evidence, it held the truth. And the truth, meticulously documented and courageously presented, is the most powerful asset of all. I learned that sometimes the person you share a bed with can be the greatest threat to your peace, and that the best defense is a clear mind, a trusted counsel, and a meticulous paper trail. His silence now doesn't haunt me, it liberates me. I built my fortune once through grit, and I defended it with the same. No one can ever take that from me again.